Skinamarink dinky dink, Skinamarink doo. I don't know why, but it's hard for me to look at the title of Skinamarink and not have the Skinamarink song playing in my head at the same time. And I don't know how many of you know that song, but it's just very difficult to get out of your head once you start singing it. Skinamarink is a new horror film that was recently released in limited theaters. It's a film that debuted at a film festival last year. This is a film directed by Kyle Edward Ball, and it was made for only $15,000. This film was shot digitally, and it all takes place in one location, one house, which apparently is the house that Kyle Edward Ball grew up in. That's his parents' house, apparently. The story here revolves around two kids who wake up in the middle of the night to discover that not only is their father gone, but all of a sudden that the furniture, the doors, the windows, and everything inside their house starts disappearing or rearranging itself. I think whenever I'm looking at a movie and I'm trying to break down what the movie is and what it did right, I think the thing that always gives me a soft spot is ambition. Ambition doesn't always have to be a big, huge risk or a swing for the fences. Sometimes ambition can be experimental. Sometimes ambition can be smaller, more intimate, you know, a lower scale type of ambition that really utilizes your budget and your filmmaking techniques to the best of your ability. If I had to describe Skinamarink, I would say that it's an ambitious, small-scale, experimental idea of a horror movie. And it really takes you to some of these scenarios that you had as a kid when you were in a dark house by yourself. Maybe where you're walking around a dark house and you hear noises or you hear something that doesn't belong. Like, this movie is meant to prey upon those fears that kids have. And almost every kid has had these type of moments. So I feel like that's where the appeal for the movie comes from. Ambition really lies in how this film is shot and how it utilizes its budget and the lack of budget to create something that feels ethereal and haunting. Something that definitely is meant to drive up your anxiety and tension. If there's one thing this movie has in bundles, it's tension, and that's because of how it's directed. There's a lot of weird camera angles in this movie. There are camera angles in this movie from the walls, from the floors, from the doors, windows, and stuff like that. A lot of times it gives off the feeling of a movie that was shot like the Paranormal Activity films. Sometimes it just feels like you're a fly or a camera on the wall watching all of this weird shit happening in this house. And then sometimes the camera will flip and it'll be more of a first-person perspective. The way that Kyle is able to flip back and forth between those two techniques, I thought really added to the suspense of the film. But also the film definitely feels low grade, low budget. It has this grainy quality to it. The lack of lighting really does make the movie feel like something scary is about to happen at all times. Grainy visual kind of obscures your vision, and it makes you strain your eyes, and it makes you kind of see things depending on the light and how it contrasts with some things that are in shadow. All of these techniques add up to a masterful technical experience for me, and again, something that's very experimental in the sense that the characters in this movie, you don't really get to see a lot of them. You don't actually get to see full body shots of the protagonist. This is a very experimental type of horror movie that kind of plays on your expectations of what you would expect from how a film is shot, but also how protagonists are supposed to be viewed in a movie. What makes the movie even creepier is that instead of a traditional score, there's like a bunch of cartoon music that sometimes plays in the background. Sometimes it cuts in, sometimes it cuts out. A lot of that, I think, does add to the atmosphere of the movie. If you're looking for atmosphere, this movie has it in spades. I promise not to use the word experimental for the rest of this review, other than, you know, this time just now where I used it one more time. My bad. I like filmmakers that take a concept and they kind of present it in an intriguing way, using different techniques to film it that you might not have seen before. If you're looking for something that's gonna drive up your anxiety, something that's gonna remind you of what it was like to be scared as a kid in a dark house, this film absolutely delivers on that. Unfortunately, I said earlier that the movie is more of the idea of a horror movie rather than an actual horror movie. It feels more theoretical than practical. This is a movie that feels more like the hint of violence or the tease of scary shit rather than actual scary shit happening. As technically masterful as I thought it was, it just did not engage me as a story and as a concept. After a while, it feels like you're watching the same scene over and over again. It's got all this buildup and all this tension and very little payoff. Sometimes because of how scatterbrained the plot is and how thin it is, and sometimes because of the way that it's shot, it's not always easy to see or to hear what's going on or to completely comprehend what's going on. And I just got lost at a certain point in the movie because I just feel like I was seeing the same scene over and over again. It hints at the fear that's perusing the edges of your brain, but it doesn't actually give you something to really be scared of. It's a movie that's held together by how it's filmed, and that's like the sole appeal of the movie. I just didn't really find enough after that to really keep me interested in watching the movie. I think it definitely would have worked better as like a short film or like, you know, a 20 to 30 minute movie. I think it definitely would have worked better there. Honestly, sometimes felt like it was 3 or 4 hours long, simply because at a certain point in the movie, I knew I wasn't gonna see anything new or different or interesting that I hadn't already seen in the first hour of the movie. Skinamarink was interesting and ambitious, but ultimately left me feeling empty and hollow and unfulfilled. I'm gonna leave this one in the Fortress of Solitude. If you're a big horror fan, I would definitely check it out. I do think this is gonna be very polarizing among audiences though. Guys, go ahead and tell me, what is your most anticipated horror film of 2023? Go ahead and put that in the comment section down below. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show, and if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.